There's a game that has been going viral lately called Repo. The acronym Repo stands for Retrieve, Extract, and Profit Operation. In this game, up to 6 players must work together to burgle valuable and physics-based items from different eerie dark places. The players must carry these items carefully without damaging them while trying their best to avoid monsters lurking in the dark. Now in this video, not I'm also going to see the game for myself, but cover each of the Game of the Year categories that mostly coincide with the game and see how well it does on each of them. I'm going to rate it based on how well it performs throughout the gameplay and see if this is worthy of being in the Game of the Year. The list is quite long, so after playing for a whole day and watched some videos, I have filtered all of the categories it has. Let's get started. First up, art direction. This determines its stand-up visual design, whether it's artistic, realistic, or stylized. The game's assets are rather simple, from simplistic environments, monsters, and players' characters, which reminds me a lot of those little pickles from the second movie of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and then monster designs from the Little Nightmare series. The game still somehow captured the horror aspect of it by nailing the visual effects, from creepy lighting, the players having camera-like POV, and the enemies wandering in the dark, while enjoying a little element of comedy to balance it out, especially with those talking animations of the avatar models. The only thing I'm not a really fan of is the creepypasta emoji that they use as an icon for the game. I think using those goofy avatars would be a better choice. So I'll rate this art direction about 7 out of 10 because the avatars are the one that really stands out for me, despite its visual simplicity, in my opinion. Audio design usually involves with sound effects to make the gameplay much more immersive, including voice acting.
That'll get us to the North Tunnel.
How are we supposed to reach that?
Just give me a minute.
And music integration. It pretty much involves anything that makes sounds in the game, except score music, which has its own category. That's why I have to exclude this, because it doesn't have that much score music except for its title menu. And since the game focuses on the horror aspect of it, it's important to really nail the sound design to really scare the players. They really delivered from the sound of the objects, the eerie ambience, footsteps, and the echo of whatever sound the players and monsters make throughout the place. In fact, this would have been harder to play solo if it weren't for the visual wacky design of the monsters. Take it as a compliment because it's scary, at least for the first time players. The goofy avatar from others and the funny interaction that goes along with it really balances the horror aspect. I'm very comfortable to rate it its audio design to 8 out of 10. Although I'm relatively new to playing and reviewing indie type games, I always thought that indie games are determined with this 2D style animation and visuals, but turns out as long as the studio is a small working group without a big publisher, that will count as an independent studio, whether they are using fancy CGI or not. I've noticed that the studio, Semiwork, made this as their first horror game. As someone who thinks a lot and jots down over 500 random ideas in my phone before going to sleep, I never thought of mixing horror and comedy in the same category, which I find this incredibly creative. Although horror comedy are pretty common in movies, but they are also extremely corny. But in games like Repo, it kinda works. Whoever came up with this idea must have liked scaring their friends so much and liked to troll around. Not to mention, like most of the indie games I've seen are focused on their really creative vision, with a story and gorgeous 2D visuals implemented into it. But Semiwork here just went on a basic idea of scaring the players while adding some whimsical element here and there, which reminds me a lot of those haunted houses or those scary corn mazes we see in real life activities. You know, sometimes those games that takes inspiration from the simple stuff we do and enjoy in real life tend to be the most fun. Also, this is just really funny just from the talking animations alone. Thus, I'll rate it as the best indie game about 8 out of 10.
Flame grant me strength.
Now this is the category where it shines the most. I've seen many videos where people are having a blast from getting scared constantly while carrying valuable items only just to drop it right after is hilarious. And them just having to interact with each other from their goofy avatars is already pure entertainment. I'm very confident putting a rate on this game at 9 out of 10. The reason why it's not 10 out of 10 because it is based on horror. And I don't mind the valuable items getting dragged to the extract repetitively. But if they manage to make it feel scary while containing the funny elements. No matter how many times you play it with your friends, then definitely this would be 10 out of 10. And the uncanny curse emoji is also holding this game back from getting the perfect score. So I hope they change that in the future. Now as for the other categories, this may somewhat involve with the game, which I don't want to give a rating to because it doesn't mainly focus on that certain category. But I can give some of my thoughts, and the rest of the others here are basically have nothing to do with the game whatsoever. Now let's give it a thought on the game direction. This determines for having outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction or design. Repo doesn't appear to prioritize on its overly artistic aspects, as evidenced by its low poly models, the random and unhinged models of props and monsters, and its simple animations. The game primarily emphasizes fun, with the developers seemingly dedicated all their efforts to enhancing the comedic interaction between players and the horror elements of the game. And also, I thought that being simplistic sometimes is way more enjoyable to look at, which gives it a comedic touch than overly detailed character models.
Not to fear, little children. I will help.
I have a comment regarding the best performance, specifically the performance of first-time players playing Repo, which everyone would find to be quite hilarious. I understand that typically this category is determined by the performance of the actual game's characters, but in this case, it's the players' fear and their hilarious interactions with each other that stand out. Gotta give it to them, they're the ones that give in the best performance, at least for me.
No! Sweet liberty!
The game just released not that long ago, but you know, if the devs keeps updating this game by adding more monsters and probably different avatar shapes, like they could be square ones that look like this sketch I made right here, it would be really cool and probably find a way to make it even more fun as the time goes on. I hope that would be the case because it's really rare to find a game like this out there. Repo feels like it's made for VR. Like, no doubt about it. Somewhere in the future, if the game manages to add everything they could to the point that they are very happy with it, and they decided to work on the VR version of the game, I bet it would do greatly.
You never said anything.
We have countless times.
Well, it is hard to tell the difference between you guys saying stop because I want you to stop, or stop as in stop, you're making me laugh so hard. What you're doing is so funny. You are on a roll. I am busting a gut. Stop.
SemiWork has started listening to the community for feedback, which is a positive sign for the longevity of their game. I can't rate it just yet because they just got started, but if they stay consistent on improving and keep the community updated, then people would definitely be happy sticking around. Best action. Even though it doesn't involve any stylish combat, action only occurs when everyone is running around like a bunch of headless chickens. There'll be that one guy killing the monster left and right. I guess that could be considered quite an action, I think.
You know what time it is? 11:30. Actually, it's adventure time! Yeah!
This doesn't really focus that much on adventure. It's more focused on the areas where the taxman tells players where they have to go and loot places. And that's pretty much about it on every level, despite it gets harder as it goes on. You know, this would actually fit if they added more places to burgle. Say, like a really huge warehouse, or in a forest where you can grab stuff inside of a tree, or an abandoned cabin. Or even better, if the game decided to make it interesting, say like a Slenderman type of gameplay where you can find nodes in the area as Slenderman tries to hunt other players, it would be a really cool addition.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. That man was fast as light.
So the game only has fighting when they do this little minigame of all players must knock each other out of the ring until one player left standing. It's not really a full-fledged fighting game. I thought it might be worth mentioning despite it's really short, and I find it pretty hilarious.
Cake, milkshake.
Ooh, I wanna try. My turn. Pancake, milkshake, pancake.
As for the best family game, yeah, I don't think this game is for everyone, especially for the faint-hearted. Can you imagine someone fainted from playing Repo? Yikes.
Exactly what we practiced for. Yes! Bang!
Best strategy. The game is not much of a strategy other than figuring out how to slip away from the monsters, but as soon as you know how the game works, so let alone have the stats to even kill the monsters, then the strategy category is pretty much a non-existent at that point.
And the game award goes to...
Repo.
Okay, the developer's name, which they called Semi-Work, and apparently Repo is not their first game they have made. Actually, this is their second game. The first one called GOTY, which was released in 2021, which was apparently not bad. Surely Repo can win the award if this had been their debut game. But since this is their second game, I don't think they'll get added in there. But I think it still has a chance of winning or at least being in the nominees for the best multiplayer or indie game category. We'll see. So those are my thoughts on the unrated categories, and the rest basically have little or nothing to do with the game whatsoever. In conclusion, the game is really fun, especially when you get to play it for the first time with other players. The only thing they need to consider adding or fixing is making it easier for everyone to join a lobby instead of going to a Discord server just to invite someone. So far, it doesn't have that in-game public lobby feature yet. Also, I hope they add more variety of shapes for other players to choose from. More monsters and places to burgle would be cool. So aside from that, the game is really fun. If anything, this is fitting like those legendary games along with the Lethal Company, Slenderman, and FNAF. And they need to change this curse emoji with something else, like please use these goofy avatars at least, because this is far too uncanny to look at. Apart from that, I think it's going to get nominated somewhere in Game of the Year if they consistently keep updating it and change the icon. That's just for this video. Please let me know what you think and suggest some other games for me to do for my next video. But if there's a viral game such as this that comes out in the future, I will definitely cover that. So I'll see you guys on the next video, and I'm going to go back and play some Repo. And goodbye.